Adamantly Analog, episode 57. This week, we're talking about pairings of music and board games with Lee Miller of Molinarius Games.
Hello and welcome to Adamantly Analog, a board gaming podcast featuring my amazing con-destroyed voice. This is your host, Harrison Dunn.
Harrison, can you just say Shaft, one bad mother, shut your mouth real quick?
Nope. Moment has passed.
Well, this is Corey on the other end, but we've also got a guest with us today, and that is Lee Miller from Molinarius Games. Hi, Lee.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey, Lee, welcome.
Thank you.
Lee, I noticed the accent. You must be from Texas.
A little bit further afield, so we're from Leicestershire in the UK. Am I your first UK guest?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, today we've got Lee joining us, and we're going to discuss games and soundtracks. That's not something that we've done before, Corey, right?
Right. We haven't.
That's because Lee's got a game that they've commissioned a soundtrack for, which I haven't heard of a lot, except for like in the last 2 weeks. I talked to someone at Origins too, who has done the same thing. So I'm interested to hear more about this and learn about, at least to me, the emerging art of board game soundtrack composition.
So I think maybe it's probably appropriate to just get into what is the game too. So Lee, if you wouldn't mind just giving us like a 2-3 minute pitch on Time Troopers.
Oh yeah, so Time Troopers is a solo-only campaign game. We've been making this for about 3 years. We've done the con circuit. We won't be at Gen Con this year. We'll be next year. We may be at PAX towards the end of November, right? So we may make it there. The game itself is a deck building game, but it takes place over the campaign. So there's 500 cards in the box, and you'll start with a trooper deck of 24 cards. And so obviously there's a lot of cards which you'll unlock through side quests and secret missions and unlocking attachments and things like that as you go. So it's kind of a cross between Gloomhaven in its campaign setup, but also Marvel Champions in its combat style, but with some Arkham Horror style missions and puzzles and things thrown in there as well. So we've kind of cherry-picked the best parts of games that we love, but built them for a solo audience in a campaign mode. So the story or the theme is that you are a squadron of time troopers going back in time to steal artifacts from the past, which are rich in dark energy, which help power the time gate. We want to power this time gate so we can change the future for the better. So there's no war or famine or American presidents putting tariffs on my products, that kind of thing set out in the future. There's also in the game a rival faction called the Scorpions, who are also going back in time to stop you from achieving those goals. So you end up with this wonderful paradox of you're in ancient Egypt, but then all of a sudden a scorpion, a robotic army from the future can also come through the time gate and try and stop you as well. There's 8 different time eras. So there's Vikings and samurais and dinosaurs and Mongolian Empire and Aztecs and conquistadors. So there's all these wonderful themes for us to pick from, and the artwork obviously changes. So we've changed the art style depending on which era you're in as well. And each era has 3 missions, and each mission lasts 45 minutes. So there's a ton of game for you to play through here. And just when you're kind of playing through one era and you finished, you then jump into a completely different era, and it's almost like the game refreshes and starts again. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm very excited about it. I'm very passionate about it, and I can keep talking for the whole 45 minutes, but I guess I'll try and wrap that up there. So yeah, we're really excited about it. It comes to GameFound in 2 days from today.
Wow. Well, we are recording on Wednesday, but by the time this comes out on Monday next week, it'll be out.
We'll
Already,
be fully
right?
funded,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah, we'll make sure to throw a link to that campaign in the show notes. So if you're listening to that and you loved Lee's description as much as I did, then you can click and follow and throw some more money at it.
Yep. And you two will have both already pledged by then as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, that's 2 more pledges done.
Lee, you're speaking my language with the Gloomhaven and Marvel Champions. I'm a big fan of both of those. And I know Harrison is He dips his toes in Marvel Champions. I don't know if he's as hardcore, but he's got spurts, right, Harrison?
Yeah, I've got like a couple characters, and the most important part of any Marvel Champions collection, I've got characters I haven't played yet.
Yeah, yeah. Most more part of a board game collection, I think.
Yeah.
So, Lee, does this include actual historical figures in it, or are they all fictional people?
No, it's real history. So every time you jump to is real. So there's characters from history which are well known, like Cleopatra and Genghis Khan,
Mhm.
but then also some characters which are not as well known that we've spent a lot of time researching. So probably one of my favorite guys is Eric Bloodaxe in the Viking era, who's
Mhm.
this kind of really cutthroat Viking king who came over to England and was so bad that they paid him to go back to Norway, and he killed his five brothers to take the throne. So and he swore that his axe was like had all these majestic powers, which he could cut people in one stroke and things like that. So he was a real guy, and he gave birth to kind of the berserker army, which I'm sure we all know that word and where it came from. But yeah, so that kind of we're hoping that this is fresh for people that they might not know some of the stories, but in every mission there's a little historical fact or tidbit in the mission book. So there's a mission book which comes with this, and with a mission infill, which is kind of like a story that you read, and then you play the mission out, and then there's a mission exfil which picks up on the story and will give you some historical information on there. And then every mission kind of has a choose your own adventure element to it as well. So you can decide which missions you'll do in which order, you'll decide what unlocks you'll do. So yeah, so you will see a lot of the historical characters, but you might not necessarily see them in the same order depending on what choices you make.
So you mentioned all those cool games like Marvel Champions and Arkham Horror and Gloomhaven. What were some of your other inspirations behind this idea?
We've been making this for 3 years, and the world is a completely different place now than when we set out. But when we started to build this, there were three core things that we were really excited about. One of them was solo games, because at that time, I mean, there's still not a ton now, but at that time, 3 years ago, there was even less. It always felt like there were solo modes attached to a multiplayer game, so it was kind of tacked
Mm.
on. It wasn't story driven. So we want to make a solo only game. We also love immersion, and I do so. For that 45 minutes or to an hour when you're playing a game, you need to be completely immersed in it. And I'm sure we'll come on to music in a while, but
Mhm.
and so having great artwork, a great story mode, a great game that is really easy to play, needed to be completely immersive. And a lot of the immersive games I play are normally IP driven. So things like Battlestar Galactica, or a lot of the Star Wars games. Like if I'm playing X-Wing, which I know is quite an old game now, but we still get it to the table because we love it. Those type of games where you're playing it, it's in your mind. You are so that character. You're so moving that ship. It's like watching a movie. And so we wanted to build something that was like that. So when we started writing it, having the different eras, what we were trying to do was almost like a computer game that was card based,
Mm.
or something which HBO or someone could pick up and make a mini series out of this. Jumping through time to all the different eras and fighting guys. So we wanted a real story which was completely immersive, and that was kind of our starting point, which inspired us. And there's tons of games out there like Gloomhaven and Frosthaven, and you know, I'm looking at my shelf for inspiration here. Like Lords of Hellas was another one that we play
Mm.
quite a bit. So yeah, those immersive story-driven games are what inspires us.
Yeah, and speaking of that, what you want to go into the connection to today's topic? We're talking about soundtracks and video games, and we've alluded to this earlier. You've hired a composer. What was that like? What is that going to be like for the player?
Yeah, so part of what we were experimenting with was music, to be completely immersed. And as a solo player, I have apps for some solo games which kind of read the story out to you and things like that, and play a little intro music. And so what we were thinking was, I mean, I'm sure you guys listen to music while you're playing games as well. Like I think
Mhm.
90% of people do that. But what we started thinking was, wouldn't it be cool if we could compose the music that we wanted you to listen to as the publisher, in the same way that like console games or movies, even books now have a playlist at the beginning of them. So why aren't tabletop games doing the same thing? Outside of maybe like a dungeon master or something like that, it's not that common that a lot of publishers give you, here's some music to listen to, we want you to listen to this music while you're playing the games. But because our game was so different era to era, like the Japanese music will be completely different, obviously, from the Mongolian music and then the ancient Egypt music. So it felt like we had to create 8 worlds for people to be immersed in, and one of the easiest tools at our disposal was music to do that. It wouldn't quite fit if you were listening to, I don't know, Blink 182 while you were playing an Egyptian level or something. It wouldn't have the same immersive experience.
Mhm.
So we're quite lucky. We have a music composer who we've worked with, Tim Clay, who's a fantastic guy, and he does a lot of musics in UK. And so we asked him if he would do us 2 or 3 just as a guide. And as soon as we listened to them, we were like, "Yeah, we need another 25, please, Tim, because these are fantastic. Also, can you make them 45 minutes long, please?" So yeah, we think that will definitely help with the immersion, and I think this could kind of be the norm going forward. I bet if we fast forward like 5, 6 years into the future, there'll be more and more of this coming out.
Harrison is a game designer of video games. It does a lot of weekend events. What are those called? Game jams. Yeah.
Yeah, game jams. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and I'm a musician, so we actually teamed up on a similar project doing music for his games and things like that. Not to the same extent that we have 25 tracks, but more of a
Not
loop.
yet.
That, so, yeah, not yet. We always pull up Melodice. You ever use melodice.org when you, yeah.
Yeah,
And it's linked on the bottom of every BGA game too. And there's playlists of 200 tracks on there that are all curated by the audience to kind of fill the space. But they don't always work. Some of them have lyrics, and for the most part, it's like when I have game music on in the background, I want it to be just like instrumental so I can focus on what we're doing.
it's all instrumental, but also we control the tempo. So there are some games which are countdown, so you're against the clock, some
Oh,
missions.
cool.
So for instance, we can increase the tempo and increase the kind of uh the vibe, so that you feel as if you're being hurried as you get towards the end of that 45-minute track, because we know that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But there's also 1 or 2 sound effects on there, like if you're on the Viking longbow, you can not only just hear the war drums, but you can hear like the sea spray and seagulls and things like that. So uh, that's important to us, and I think using Melodice and something else, you're not always in control of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think here, putting the publisher at the core of what's possible to share with someone. So a cool, we haven't done it, but I think it would be really cool if you think of like a horror game or a scary game. If the publisher is putting out a game where they have jump scares or things in the playlist, you're not going to know that's in there, but the publisher is,
Yeah.
which you might not get through a randomized playlist or something else. So yeah, I think it's got a lot of potential.
This reminds me of a game I played many years ago. Let's see if I can find it now. The Harbingers. Has anyone ever heard of the Harbingers? It,
No.
it was a horror game that you actually had to put a VHS tape into the VCR while
Oh,
you played it, and
I
it
do know
was
which
like
one you mean.
you do, yeah,
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was like late 80s, I think, or early 90s.
yeah, it was a long time ago.
I remember.
um,
Yeah,
Atmosphere of the Harbingers, yeah, and
yeah.
so it would do jump scares, and it was like cracks of lightning just randomly going off, and I remember the first time I played that, I was floored by it. It was like so cool. I'm sure the game was terrible. It's got a 6.1 on BGG, but who knows?
Cool. Well, let's round this out with a softball for you then, Lee. What are some of your favorite games to play? Let's get to know you better.
I play everything. I think we all do. I have my favorites that I love. I'm on the record several times as saying that my favorite game is Battlestar Galactica. For a number of reasons, it's my favorite franchise. It's a game that non-players can't just dive in and go, "Oh, I'll give this a go." You have to know how to play that game to play it, and it's an event game as well. So you don't just have a casual game. Normally, it's at a convention, or it's a friend's birthday, or you've made the effort to get together to play this. So I love playing that. Um, myself and Mark have a May the 4th tradition where we will play Star Wars games all day, which I love just for the kind of the fact that we do that all day. In terms of favorites, it seems to change at the moment. We're playing a lot of a game called Overs, which won't be that you won't have heard of because it's a cricket-based game, and I know cricket's not huge in Wisconsin. But yeah,
Yeah, that's the
Nemesis.
little bugs, right?
Yeah,
Crickets.
exactly.
Yeah, we got those.
Yeah. We play a lot of Nemesis. We've been playing some old school games as well, like Shards of Infinity and some things like that recently.
Nice.
And we've just bought a Cronky Hole board, so we've been playing some of that. But yeah, I play everything. And probably the biggest thing I have on the table at the moment is Dragon Eclipse, which we'll speak about, the latest Awaken Realms game,
Mm.
which I love. And ISS Vanguard, I've been playing a lot of solo as well, which is very good. So yeah, there's no bad games, right? I just love all of them.
You weren't joking about the thematic. Those are all very thematic games.
Yeah, I think that's where the inspirations come from, is the escapism.
Yeah.
So I had a very corporate job, and kind of this was all thematic games were kind of an escape from the real world. And now I'm lucky enough that this is my full-time job. So yeah.
Lee, it's been great getting to know you, but let's get to the point of the podcast. Let's talk about some of our favorite board game and music pairings. All right, so this week on Adamantly Analog, we are joined by our guest Lee here, and Lee's going to help us pick out a list of games and soundtracks to pair with them. And normally we have a first player rule pulled from a board game or something like that, but Corey has one-upped it here. He's amped this up to the next level, turned this challenge to 11. Our first player rule is to name one song on the mellowdice.org playlist for Heat, Pedal to the Metal. And like, so we just got to guess a song, I guess here. And if it's on there, we win. And if not, we don't win.
Wow.
That's right. Yeah. So, but I have a tiebreaker. Do you see that?
Yeah, your tiebreaker is whoever suggests a better incorrect answer goes first.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a good part of the podcast is going to be just listing song titles.
Yeah, we're gonna do about 30 minutes of that. Okay.
Okay.
Ready to go.
Excellent.
No, I'll take myself out of this because I did look at the list, but there are 256 entries on here, so there's a lot to go on. But we'll cut out all the wait time. So if it does take 30 minutes, the audience won't know. But name a song related to the theme of the game Heat, Pedal to the Metal, that you think might have made its way into the Melodize playlist. Remembering that this is crowdsourced, the gamers have added these songs to it.
I can only think of two. One of them's very safe, one of them's risky, but okay, let's go for Shut Up and Drive by Rihanna. Is that on there?
Ooh.
Oh, all right.
Harrison, what's yours?
I also have a safe and a funnier one. I'm gonna go with my fun one. I'm gonna be 500 Miles by the Proclaimers.
Okay. You're both right. They're both on there. So that means you
Okay.
have to go to round 2.
So I can't remember who sings this, but I'm going to go for So Glad We Made It. I think it's from Days of Thunder. That must be on there.
Okay.
Or Glad We
Harrison?
Made It.
And I'm gonna go with The Distance by Cake.
Okay. So Glad We Made It or Glad We Made It is not on here.
Oh.
Distance by Cake is on here, and I remember
Okay.
that one because that was my guess too.
Yeah.
So there you go. So Harrison's gonna go first. Lee, we'll let you go second because I didn't even play the game. So second place for the effort of participating.
I think I should just come in every week and just do that. That's tons of fun.
That was way more engaging than I thought it was going to be. Great content.
Yeah.
Got a new podcast idea.
And it only took us 35 minutes.
There we go. All right. Well, my number one pick is a solo game that I just got in the mail actually a couple days ago, and I've played a couple times already. Got it through a board game trade, and I'm going to flash it on screen for us YouTube on the call right away. Oh, look at that. Ooh. It is Spire's End from Favreau Ventures. And I have paired that with, and I just pulled this up on the first try, the Hades video game soundtrack. It
Nice.
is like the perfect level of moody but mythical, uh a little bit of like background vocals here and there that so far every time I've played have hit at like the perfect down moment like between combats and made my recent losses feel all that more like uh emotional, engaging, impactful. So,
Yeah.
Spire's End is a single deck sort of exploration thing. Thematically, it's like a grim dark horror. You have a party of 7 characters that you play 2 of at a time. When one of them dies, which is very likely is going to happen, you bring out another one, and you lose when when something in the deck says you lose or you've reached an ending, or when all 7 of them die. And you're primarily using uh, D8s to conduct combat and do hit chances and stuff like that. Um, but the most fascinating thing that I've really found, as far as like an immersive element goes, is that it uses cubes to track everything, and that's for your health, your armor, your statuses, the durations, and it doesn't hold your hand much when it comes to remembering what each of those things mean. To the point where it's not impossible to remember it all, but like you can't get up and walk away and come back to it, that sort of thing. So it threads this real nice line of just enough things for you to hang on to and like remember, okay, what each of those cubes is for and why they're there. And I found that I normally don't like that sort of like intensive memory element, but it kept me engaged. And then plus the background music, I was like, oh yeah, I'm just rolling a D8 a bunch of times and like over the course of 30 seconds, just like throw. But this feels super thematic. So I was pleasantly surprised at how well those two paired together. Um, Fire's End is not something that's like super widely available. I think you can only buy it new from the publisher out of California, and it's like 40 or $50. So I don't know if have either of you had a chance to try this or have you seen this before?
Seen it
No.
before. Was it crowdfunded recently? Right? It's
It's been
2019.
fairly successful. So he's got a couple different versions of this now. There's like 1 or 2 Spire's End and then some spin-off series that use a similar mechanism. And I think they have been crowdfunded in the past.
Hmm, cool. The art style is really neat. Only 2 colors, of print on these cards. Looks like it's blacks and reds.
Yeah, black, white, and red. Yeah, they're very visually striking, very cool.
Yeah.
So that is my number 1 pick, Spire's End, all the way back from 2019 from Favreau Ventures. All right, Lee, take us to your number 1.
Sure, yeah. So my number one by Awaken Realms is Dragon Eclipse, which we touched on earlier. Fantastic game. I fully backed it, got all the mats and everything else, and 20 kilograms of box arrived. It's you, it's a completely deep experience. The artwork's fantastic. The game is you're controlling mistlings, which are kind of like Pokemon's on acid. It's a fantastic game where you are journeying through a campaign. It's a solo or multiplayer experience. So, and I've got 2 different sets of games going. Lots of card unlocks and collections. But you're in this world of floating mountains and dragons and mistlings, kind of like Pokemon, but for legal reasons, not Pokemon, are accompanying you on this journey, and you're trying to find this like dark energy which is ripped open and is destroying the beautiful nature. And so you're kind of on this journey to fix that. And so the music I picked, which goes perfectly with this, it was the Avatar soundtrack, which doesn't sound like it should go, but it just does. I think the probably subconsciously the floating mountains and everything that's on Pandora is probably connecting the dots for me somewhere, but also the theme of the game and the music. It's quite operatic. And you're going along to save these species and everything else, and so that links in quite nicely with Avatar as well. So yeah, it's just a wonderful game, and Avatar's music I think is wonderfully underrated as well. So yeah, it just gels really nicely, and not much words or singing. It's very instrumental in a lot of places as well. But also the soundtrack itself changes quite a lot. So there's this journey. So as you're turning the pages and going through different adventures, the music just changes as well. So yeah, I think it's great. Sounds like it shouldn't go together, but it just does.
I can see the connection to Avatar. The landscapes are very much like that sort of colorful, like verdant background. Lots of like you mentioned, the floating landscapes and things.
You know, you put this game on the list, and I was like, oh, that's funny. I've played a video game with the same name. And then as I'm looking at this, Mistlings, you mentioned that. That's the same
Yeah,
thing. There is a video game version of this. Uh, and I'm happy to hear you talk about it this way because I was not a fan of the video game version. It was like a Pokemon adjacent like deck builder, Slay the Spire thing with just not super well telegraphed mechanics. I don't know if one of them is a paste of the other or what exactly the version is of that, but this what you described looks super cool, and I'm looking at the screenshots on or the pictures on BGG, and it looks like a lot more interesting thing here. So
yeah. It's a very well put together game, and
yeah,
obviously, Awaken Realms know what they're doing with this stuff. I didn't know there was a video game, so but you've not exactly given it a glowing review, so I won't be rushing out
no,
to play
I
that.
was I tried it during a Steam Next Fest like a year or two ago, and then I was talking with the developers for a while, and I got into the beta to like help them test it more. And it just, yeah, I don't feel like they listened to any of the feedback that I sent them. Uh, but at the same time, if it was intentionally supposed to be a board game project, a lot of that design choices in the video game make a lot more sense now when you'd have a lot more of this information readily available. And these minis look way better than the weirdly animated characters in the game.
Yeah, well, maybe there's a future podcast. What games would work better as computer games, and what computer games would work better as tabletop games?
Hmm.
Well,
There you
listeners, have we
go.
got a treat for you? We have very few episodes that are similar to that, but I don't think we've taken it that far. The which of these should have been the other? Got to put that down in the notes.
Is it cooperative? You mentioned it's multiplayer or solo.
Yeah, you can play cooperatively. So you take two mislings with you, so you can play two players
Okay,
on a solo journey, if you like, on a cooperative journey. But yeah,
gotcha.
we've we've played it cooperatively and solo, and like I always want to jump onto the next level, so I prefer to play the solo mode uh,
Yeah,
and get going. But yeah, it's a great game. I really like it.
cool.
Yeah, so that was Dragon Eclipse, and the music was the Avatar movie soundtrack.
All right, my first pick is a total change of course from the fantasy themes that we've got so far. We're going west, people.
Lame.
Uh, lame. There aren't very many games with this particular theme. There's lots of cowboys out there, but are they working on their cows right now? And that's exactly what you're doing in Great Western Trail. And I put second edition because that's the one I know. But in any case, it's a great time cosplaying and role playing cowboys while you play a heavy Euro game, which doesn't seem to really fit. But for some reason, it's just so easy to like. There's a snake in my boot while you play. I can't help it. But anyways, I think that one pairs with the Ennio Morricone like anything really. This is the guy that's known for the quintessential spaghetti western soundtracks, like Good, the Bad, the Ugly, right? Do you bow wow wow, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's plenty of this like really great instrumental soundscape stuff out there that just is like it's just perfect background music for this one. It would probably work too for what's that sandbox western game where you're like shooting people and stealing stuff and you guys know what I'm talking about? Never
Oh,
played.
Western Legends.
Yes, Western Legends. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's on my list. I got to play that game. But I have played Great Western Trail Second Edition plenty of times, and I've lost almost every time in an embarrassing fashion. Yet I still love the game. It truly is a trail. You're going in a circuit. You're doing it over and over again, rehearsing the circuit, improving it, building buildings, collecting cows. You're deck building cows. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of theme here, despite it being very Euro and very mechanical, because everything is about some element of the West in some weird, watered down board game fashion. You guys have played Great Western Trail, right?
A couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna hurt your feelings here and say
It's okay. It's okay.
it's not one of my favorites. I have two games which are kind of like really popularized that I just can't get into for some reason, and then this is one of them. But yeah, so when I saw it, so when you mentioned it, I was like, oh no, he's gonna ask me what I think of the game.
That's okay.
So yeah, yeah, it's great, but I don't connect with the theme in the same way that I do other themes. But that's good. It'd be boring if we all love the same stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
You
it's
know,
it's not too late to not air the episode, Corey, I guess.
yeah. Let me ask you guys this. What's your top 1 list of board games where the meeples can wear cowboy hats?
I think mine's probably Cult Express.
No!
Uh, I don't know. I could probably force them into a Wild Child West.
Yeah. Alright. Well, anyways, my first pick, Great Western Trail, 2nd edition, and anything Ennio Morricone.
All right. Well, I'll start the back half of the list here. And so, like I like to do, I'll take you on a little journey before I actually I'll give you the context for this pick. So we are playing a certain game, a certain legacy game with our neighbors, Aeon's End Legacy, and you're fighting various monsters, and they're super weird, and you're these like post-apocalyptic demons and wizards, and I don't know, it's like a dark fantasy theme. But one of the monsters that we fought, and it's not really a spoiler because all the monsters are complete nonsense. There's one monster that is like a giant mushroom or has to do with fungus. And so we were like, we should listen to music. What should we listen to? And Lauren just types in mushroom music on Spotify to see what comes up. And what we got ended up being just actually the perfect fit for it. And now we frequently go to this playlist. And this is something you can look up for yourself, and I'll link it in the notes. It is Garbungus's Fungal Musical Mix. Uh, it's just a complete nonsense word, or it's somebody's name. Sorry, Garbungus, for calling your name nonsense. So this playlist is, I don't really know how to describe it. It's not like super experimental. It is kind of weird and wobbly and a little bit electronic and a little bit like hazy. I, I don't I don't know how to describe it. I would be interested to have Corey, you listen to it and tell me what someone with a little bit more music theory taste could how to describe it. But it ends up fitting very well for the kind of weird, distorted, dark fantasy that is Aeon's End. But then also coincidentally a lot of things. I've just kind of thrown it on in the background for many other games, and it's nice background noise. A lot of it does have lyrics, but it just works too.
Listening to the first 10 seconds of Closet Lunatic, the first track on the playlist, I would say a psychedelic electronica.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Sure, psychedelic. There we go. Let's do it.
Not necessarily intended for actual mushrooms to listen to, but maybe someone who has just eaten said mushrooms.
Yeah, yeah. You eat a portabella and then you listen to this. It's great.
Portobello.
But don't you think that's a really cool thing though about music and games, which we were touching on earlier? So you, now you would never have found that music ever, and now potentially you've recommended to someone else. It'll get played a little bit more. We were playing, or someone recommended a band called Gunship to me, which I'd never heard of, that they found on a playlist because they were playing some cyberpunk. So I just put that on randomly, and now I listen to that like it's like 80s synth music. It's quite cool, and I listen to that just regularly now. So, yeah, I think it's cool that people find these little gems and recommend them to each other.
Yeah, it's like the joy of making each other's mixtapes and mix CDs in high school, right?
Yeah, because that's gone now. That era's gone with the Spotify. So yeah,
Well, real quick back on Aeon's End, if you're not familiar with that one, it's a cooperative deck building game, and I mentioned it's a dark fantasy world being overrun by demons, and you're a breach mage trying to defend one of the last bastions of humanity. And the deck building is unique in that you'd never shuffle your deck, so the discard order, the play order of your cards matters, and then the actual play is about opening these up to 4 portals in front of you to be able to like channel spells through them. So playing a spell, you have to put it into an open portal, and then the next turn it'll fire off. So there's a lot of timing elements to try to manage amongst the 4 players, or up to 4 players. And then there's a really cool uh, turn order aspect to it as well. The turn order is semi-randomized, so you have a deck of cards that represents the four players and the bad guy acting, and each round you mix those up and you deal them out one at a time. That determines the turn order. So you could get some really good turns where you get to go two or even three times in a row at some player counts, or you could get really bad beats and have the bad guy go four times in a row, which has happened to us. So that one's a lot of fun. Any version of it, and they've got a lot of them out there now. And that is Anne's End from 2016 or today. The by Indie Boards and Cards, and paired with the Garbungus's Fungal Musical Mix. It's also just really fun to say.
There's been a trend for mushroom themed games over the last few years. Have you guys noticed that?
Sure
There's
have.
there's that Elizabeth Hargrave one in 2024. There's Mycelia. I've seen at least 2, 3 others, and for whatever reason, mushrooms
Shout
are
out
in
to
right
Gnome
now.
Hollow with
Yeah.
Emma Anderson's gnomes picking all those mushrooms.
Okay, so I guess we're moving on to my second choice
Yeah.
then. So this is when I was told we were going to do this, I went for something a little quirky. So it's a game called Overs, which is about cricket. So as I said, not huge in Wisconsin, but bear with me here because it's more than just cricket. So the game Overs is it could translate easily into baseball, where the pitcher is playing cards. So you have six pitchers. So every time the pitcher plays a card, you know what he has in his hand. So you know if he plays a fastball, you know the next ball coming might not be a fastball because he only has two in his deck, etc., etc. And then as the batter, you're playing a card opposite that, and you can swing for the hills, or you can bunt, or you can do whatever you want to do. I'm putting this in baseball terms, but obviously the cricket swings are slightly different. So it's kind of a wonderful double bluff element where one player is the bowler or the pitcher, and the other player is the batsman. And then the further you get through the cards, the more advantageous it gets to be the batter because you know what cards left the bowler has got. So you can kind of get loads of runs towards the end, and then you swap roles. So it's a really easy to play, fun game, which we normally play after a couple of beers with my friends. Dead straightforward, and but the music that goes with it is from my childhood. So it's building on the nostalgia. But it's Soul Limbo by Booker T and the MGs, which I'm sure you've heard of. You know, everyone's heard of this. So anyone listening, I would definitely recommend you go and play this because it's impossible not to tap your feet or move your shoulders within the first 4 seconds of this playing. And it's not at all whatever music you're associating in your head with English cricket. I guarantee this is not what this is. And it's kind of the same, I guess, for American sports and all sports in general, which is the theme tune that you've grown up listening to while you're watching those sports. If you're playing a sports version of a game, or even a game that's related to a TV program, or even kind of like Lord of the Rings, which we've touched on, you always want to play the soundtrack that goes with that game. And this Overs game it's always voted #1 best sports theme in Europe, and so that's why I picked this. And also, it's kind of hopefully 4 or 5 people that are listening will love this song now, and it will enter their consciousness forever and a day. So
I
yeah,
don't like the
that's that.
implication that we have only 4 or 5 listeners, Lee.
No, there's thousands of listeners, but I was drawing a Venn diagram between listeners, cricket, and people actually like this music, and I got to 4.
Oh yes, okay. Thank you for showing the math.
Yeah, yeah. I dug my way out of that hole quite quite
Perfect.
well. Quite well. So yeah, so I went for Soul Limbo, and the game is Overs by Maitland Games. But I think that represents kind of all sports music in terms of the theme, the TV theme that you're used to.
Cool. What is the meaning of overs? Is that a betting thing or is that part of the game?
Yeah, so overs is kind of the innings in cricket. So
Ah,
an over is 6 balls, and then a new bowler has to bowl for 6 balls. Then so in baseball terms, it'd be every pitcher gets 6 pitches, and then they have to replace him with another pitcher. He can come back, but he's only allowed to pitch six balls in a row, and it's called
and
an over.
and if you're not pitching, you're out in the field trying to catch the ball?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. I really have no knowledge of cricket, but I've been curious
No,
for a long
I
time.
realized when I was picking the music, and I felt like this of all of the podcasts you've done, I've never picked this as a game ever. And then the one time I pick it is when it's I'm with two guys who've probably, yeah, like we were saying earlier, associate cricket with a book rather than a bat and a ball. But it works just as well. I don't know the. I guess it would be like the "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" song. It would be impossible to play a baseball game and not listen to that song or something of that ilk, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the cool thing about baseball is it's got so much tradition that we honor to this day, and the full-time organist in the ballpark is the thing that almost every stadium has, and it's like no other sport is doing that. They're playing loud, piped in music from recorded music from the radio or whatever. I am a big baseball fan. Cricket is definitely not in my wheelhouse, but I'm curious and I'd love to go to a game and see them break the wicket or whatever happens.
Yeah. So,
That's a thing, right?
so as a Steelers fan, I could have picked "Renegade" as well as a
Yeah.
as a good song, but yeah, we won't go there with our quarterback situation. But yeah,
Wait, so you could have picked any NFL team and you picked the Steelers?
yeah. I'm going to Dublin actually later this year. They're playing the Vikings in Dublin, so that should be a good game. But yeah, I lived in Boston for a little while before moving to Chicago, and kind of everyone in Boston was a Patriots fan. So
Okay.
when I was living there, the first game I watched was a Steelers game, and they beat them. So I was like, oh, I'll just be a Steelers fan just to annoy all the Bostonians, and it kind of stuck. But also, I grew up in a village called Sheffield in the UK, and that's the UK steel industry, or it was the UK steel industry. So it kind of all knitted together quite well.
There you go. I'm just teasing, by the way. Steelers. I have no offense to the Steelers. It's not you're not the Bears fan, so that's okay.
My late uncle was a Steelers fan, so the Steelers have a special place in our family. So you're welcome here.
That's good. Yeah, I moved all the Chicago Bears stuff out of the way before I knew it was coming on.
Oh, you're joking, right?
I'm joking.
We'll end this now.
All right, Corey, why don't you take us with your final game before we get too much more sports ball in here? People are gonna think we're a real podcast.
Yeah, my final game is Nemesis from Awakened Realms, which of course is the game where you play basketball on a spaceship. Just kidding. Okay. This is basically just a rip off of Alien the movie, but it is a very popular board game. I would say line at this point because it's got many other titles in Nemesis, and it is one of those Kickstarter. What would you say? 20 kilogram boxes delivery kind of situations.
That's like
Um,
5 pounds, right?
It's yeah, for the one box, but I think there's quite a bit of content that comes with this one. Now you don't need all that because the game is actually pretty fantastic in its base game status, which is a big spaceship with a bunch of rooms to explore. Every room's got a different function on the ship, and every room can be used to either sabotage the ship or help you avoid aliens or kill aliens or whatever it may be. There's a lot of kind of role playing. There's a lot of lying and deceit in this game because you're given two objective cards and you get to choose if you want to do the one that helps the team or you want to do the more devious one. But with that, and because it's such a long and thematic game, you really get into it and get invested in the characters. And a soundtrack is so vital to that experience. So the fans, which there are many of for Nemesis, have come up with quite a few board game soundtracks and quite a few like really high quality ones too. So I linked one of them here. It's a YouTube playlist actually, but it's about what is it 3.5 hours of music, which should get you through most of the game, depending on the group you play with. But it's just this sort of ambient, sort of electronic soundscape, all instrumental. There's drips and like ship creaking and space noises and stuff thrown in, and every now and then a little audible kind of jump scare kind of moment.
Sounds stressful.
That's the tone we're trying to set here.
I have not yet played this one. I keep waiting for someone with more disposable income than me to bring it to game night, where I
Yeah.
can then try it.
It's definitely one of our favorites. I love Nemesis. Didn't get the new expansions or the newer games that came out, so I don't know if they're any good. Have you played those, Corey?
I have played. I don't even know what I've played to be honest with you. I go over to a friend's house who has a bunch of it, and he's throwing in an expansion every time we play. I think we've done Lockdown once. But we've definitely played the base game with a handful of expansions.
Have you seen the ship that someone's built so that replaces the board?
Yeah, I've seen some of those. Those are impressive.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to see one of those at UK Games Expo a couple of years ago, and it was very impressive. Yeah, I can imagine playing that. It's got like Steam and all the LED lights on there and everything else. So it just looked
Mm.
fantastic.
So again, that is Nemesis with the Nemesis board game soundtrack. Not very surprising, but it goes hand in hand, and I'll link it in the show notes.
All right, Corey, to save my voice, do you want to run down that list for us?
Yeah, sure. Harrison picked Spire's End with Hades. Oh man, this was a thing we talked about last time. Hades official soundtrack, as well as Aeon's End. He's all about the end games today, with Garbungus's Fungal music mix, which is linked in the show notes as well. Lee picked Dragon Eclipse with the Avatar movie soundtrack, and Overs with Soul Limbo by Booker T and the MGs. And I picked Grey Western Trail, second edition with Ennio Morricone, and Nemesis with the Nemesis board game soundtrack, also linked in the show notes. Boom.
Sounds like a great list.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guarantee no one's ever played that music in that order ever.
All at the same time.
Yeah.
All right, well, that wraps up another episode of Adamantly Analog. But before we get on our way here, we like to normally shout out something that we're doing outside of playing a bunch of board games and video games. Lee, do you want to share any movies or TV shows or books or things you're really enjoying right now?
Books is a sore topic. I'm currently halfway through building a library in the house at the moment for my wife, and we have books everywhere. She's a very avid reader, so that's taking up a lot of my time. Buying Kallax units for books rather than games should be a crime. So I'm doing a little bit of that. In terms of TV, I just started watching a terrible, terrible program called The Rookie, which I know people are going to say is kind of TV trash, but yeah, I'm getting into that. That's kind of beautifully easy to watch in the background whilst I'm working on something else. So yeah, it's a cop show. So yeah, that's pretty good. And then just gearing up, ready for the start of the football season. So yeah, that's it really.
Hey, I mean, The Rookie may be a cop drama, but it's got Nathan Fillion, so like, take the good with the bad.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of bad in there, but it's the right side of cheesy bad, and it's a perfect kind of no brain watch, which is good after a long day.
I can appreciate that.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. This was cool to talk to you, and a great topic. I'm happy we got to talk about music and games.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad I suggested it, and yeah, I had a lot of fun. Thanks very much, and I'll definitely be listening to some Mushroom Psychedelica at some point over the next 7 days.
And where should we look for Time Troopers one more time?
Sure, yeah. So Time Troopers is available on GameFound now, as people are listening, and just go on over there and check it out if you're a fan of solo deck building games.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Drink water.
Drink water.
Adamantly Analog is Corey Murphy and Harrison Dunn. Original themes and bumper music by Corey Murphy. Reach us at adamantlyanalog@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.